Hello and welcome back to week number 16 of the Smart Start Recreational Therapy Insights YouTube channel by Smart CU Hub. My name is Nathan Lamaster and I'm your host for this series. We are all the way on to episode number 16, believe it or not, towards our goal of 52 episodes this year, one for every week. We'll be releasing these every Monday as a reminder at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. So put these in your calendar, subscribe to the channel, and make it even easier so you get notified when these pop up, and also like the videos if you really like them. Help us to get higher up in Google search, which will help a lot of recreational therapists find us, and hopefully utilize some of the knowledge that we're teaching them throughout this video series. So this week, last week we talked about pediatrics. This week we're talking about behavioral health. So behavioral health is the prime area recreational therapists currently work in our field. So about 60% of all recreational therapists work in some capacity in the behavioral health field, whether that be long-term, short-term, acute, subacute, all that. So this particular topic that we're going to talk about today will affect a lot of recreational therapists. And even if you don't work in one of these environments that's labeled as a behavioral health hospital or such, chances are you work with clients that can benefit from some behavioral health interventions, seeing that 1 in 4 people in the United States has some sort of diagnosable mental illness. Believe it or not. Crazy, right? Anyways. Without further ado, I would like to kind of give you more explanation of what kind of topics we're going to dive into. We're going to be looking at depression, anxiety, trauma recovery, emotional regulation, and how recreational therapy can offer hope, structure, and healing for these ailments that people come to the hospital to see us, or in the community even, and how RT plays a crucial role in teaching coping skills and such, so that people can live more fulfilled, valuable lives. Also find out what their purpose is, because that's a big deal, where we kind of excel in that. All right, without further ado, we're going to dive right into understanding behavioral health. So in a lot of our videos, you'll understand that we have a section that usually comes first about understanding the various illnesses or disabilities or whatever else we're talking about that episode, before we get into how to treat it and interventions that RTs use, and then long-term engagement. The reason is this helps you to understand first the baseline. So not all recreational therapists have all this knowledge. So my goal is to impart this knowledge onto you so that you can be better, effective as a recreational therapist, to treat these illnesses and ailments as you come across them. So behavioral health in recreational therapy refers to supporting individuals with mental health conditions, emotional struggles, or psychological challenges through purposeful, goal-driven activities. So that is basically what we're doing. So some common populations that we might serve: individuals with depression and anxiety. Those are the most common mental health disorders that are out there. Depression and anxiety. About 1 in 4 people have these. And helping people to build their motivation back up, coping with stress and triggers, and then regaining confidence so that they can face life. Trauma survivors. So there are a lot of people that face some sort of acute trauma. Something happens in their life that is very impactful and basically changes their response to certain things that they might come across. So these traumas are triggers, so that later, if we're not addressing these things and teaching them coping skills and how to deal with them, whenever those triggers pop back up, they'll go right back into that trauma state where they were either scared or have some sort of negative outcome. So we'll be looking at that. Those with severe and persistent mental illness, that could be like schizophrenia, psychosis, bipolar disorder, all those things, which are more like chronic, going on throughout life. Youth and adolescents, we'll even be looking at that population specifically. Not only may they have some mental illnesses, but they also have their various hormone developments and brain development. As they're growing up, the brain continuously develops until we are age 25. So adolescents, they're not even having their prefrontal cortex fully developed until age 25. So that definitely impacts some of the therapies and treatments that are available for these age groups. And then substance use. So a lot of people have a stigma against people who use substances. Typically, people that use substances are trying to cope with something, either trauma, or they are trying to deal with anxiety or depression or some sort of primary diagnosis, and they're using substances to kind of cope with that. So before we pass judgment, obviously, we need to understand where they're coming from and treat the core reason for what they're dealing with and why they use substances to begin with. So some core benefits of RT and behavioral health. Emotional regulation. Okay, activities that we would provide in this would promote mindfulness, self-awareness, and calmness. Social connection. We might do group games and shared experiences to combat isolation. Skill development, building coping strategies and and stress management tools, and also helping clients build confidence in themselves, and hope and empowerment. So offering a positive identity in themselves, goal setting, so things that they can look forward to in their future, especially when you're depressed, you can't really see things in your future that you're looking forward to. So we're going to be kind of working with clients to discover what those are. And also experience joy in the recovery process, knowing that where they're at right now is temporary and life will get better. So RT isn't just about forcing positivity. It's about creating space for growth for clients, resilience and connection through meaningful activities. That's where the magic really happens for recreational therapy. Now we're going to talk about core strategies for mental health recreational therapy. Let's talk about some strategies for supporting behavioral health goals through the use of recreational therapy. One, we'll talk about trauma-informed care principles. So you may have heard the term trauma-informed care. One biggest section of this is the prioritize safety for the clients that we're dealing with, create emotionally and physically safe environments. If they have experienced some sort of physical, emotional trauma, chances are that if you don't have the right environment for the clients that you're seeing, you might trigger something and then put them right back into that trauma state. So foster choice and empowerment. You're giving them control in a situation where they may have not ever felt control before. A lot of times trauma involves having choices taken away from you and having something thrust upon you. So giving them choice and empowering them to choose is essential for trauma-informed care. Be consistent and predictable. Don't try to throw any curveballs. Let them try to figure out and understand you and what you're trying to do with them. So use routines as much as possible, and add and put clear expectations up front, in front of each of the groups that you do, and avoid re-traumatization. So that might be like just discovering what the triggers were and not doing those triggers and not having environments where they do those triggers. All right, we're going to teach classes or do groups that help promote mindfulness and emotional awareness. That could include breathing techniques. So box breathing as a technique where 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. that type of breathing, guided breathing apps or meditations, or even balloon breath. So and what this does is help them to recenter as well as slow down their heart rate, thus lowering their anxiety levels. So mindful movement, that could be yoga, walking meditations, or Tai Chi. Grounding techniques, okay, so basically where they're aware of their surroundings. So tactilely, what are they feeling? Okay, I feel the table right now. Smell, what do I smell? Really nothing. I don't smell anything in my office. Sight, have my eyes closed. If I could have my eyes open and notice the things around me, whatever the case might be. Taste, got nothing. Taste other than leftover coffee in my mouth. And hearing, do I hear it? I hear a clock ticking, and I hear traffic because I'm in my home office and I can hear cars go by. So what that does is kind of ground you to what you're actually experiencing in that moment. You're being situationally aware. So that is kind of what you're doing there. Art and expressive techniques, that could be painting, journaling, or using music therapy for clients. Obviously, we can't call it music therapy because there are music therapists, but we're using music as therapy as part of recreation, and honestly, we achieve a lot of the same results. So we're using that to help clients. That could include, putting them into a calm state, using music without lyrics. That could be, maybe it's their favorite type of music and it kind of puts them in a great place. It could be based off of the rhythm of the music, the beats per second. It could be a lot of different things. There's a lot of science that backs up how to use music as a therapy. So I challenge you to look deeper into that particular subject if you guys are interested. We have a course on the site is called Using Sound as a Recreational Therapy Intervention by Randy Shaw. And I definitely recommend taking his course on this subject as he reveals a lot of the science in his course. Okay, so moving on, we're going to use recreation to build self-efficacy. So skill mastery activities, we're going to have them learning new hobbies, games that build them confidence. So when they feel like they're doing something and they're doing it well, they're going to build confidence in themselves. Strength-based interventions, so focus on what clients can do. We're going to put them in their wheelhouse. We're going to help build on those strengths that they already have to help build that confidence in themselves. Goal setting. We're going to create small, achievable goals. So we're going to have, by this time, the client must have done this as the goal. And we're going to share that goal with the client, and the client can choose to do that thing. And hopefully it is a goal that you feel and they feel is achievable for them, so that as they make these wins for themselves, whether they be small or big wins, they can start feeling more confident in themselves. And then reflective discussion. And we're going to end all of our discussions and sessions with conversations about what they learned and how they are growing. So they can actually start verbalizing some of the things that they're experiencing. We're going to foster peer support and teach them social skills. So group games is a great way to do that. Having an icebreaker where everybody gets to know each other. A lot of times when they're coming into a group, they know nobody. And so they're already dealing with depression and anxiety, so they might be a little less likely to engage with others. And your goal is then to kind of get them out of their shell, so to speak. Team challenges or social scenarios. I've talked about this intervention that I like to use. And this is usually appropriate for when clients have been there for a little while and they kind of get used to each other. But Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's a show that was on TV, for those of you that don't know, but it is based off of the comedy improv. And the improv comedy can the audience then chooses a scenario, and then the actors choose how they're going to act it out. The little twist I like to put on it is, like, for instance, we talk about communication skills and being assertive versus aggressive versus passive. And, assertive communication skills might not be evident to everybody who is in your class, but they might need to learn this so that they can advocate for themselves and communicate with family members or whatever else they're dealing with, where they feel like they are either being stepped upon or they're isolating themselves because they're too aggressive. Sometimes they're not aware of how their actions are being perceived by others. And so having a group feedback, so a group determines whether or not they thought they were being aggressive, assertive, or passive, but the person also assumes in their head there might be one or the other or the other. And so the group kind of verifies, either gives them positive feedback that they are what they think they're being, or they aren't, and what they're doing is being perceived in a different way. That is a very insightful tool that I've used for a lot of groups to understand this part of themselves. So cooperative recreation, so things where they get put in groups where they have to work together. That's like another great team building activity. That could be like cooking together, or it could be collaborative art. You have an art project to do together. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Ink Masters, but they'll be put into these groups and they'll say, okay, you have to work with all these people and you have to create something, and then you're going to compete against this other group and they're all going to be working on something. And so it kind of makes it fun because they're competing, but at the same time, within their individual groups, they're learning, okay, who's going to be the most assertive here? Who's going to have the greatest ideas? How are we going to work together? How are we going to present this when it's done? All of that information. And so it's really useful. Great tool to do that type of thing. And then sports. Sports is another great one. Obviously, sports are known for teamwork, right? And being a sore winner and a sore loser, learning how to cooperate, learning how to compete, learning how to strategize. All these things are part of group sports, and I think that's a very great tool that we can use as recreational therapists to address these social needs. So when we combine intellectual recreation all right, so when we combine intentional recreation with therapeutic goals, we can help clients experience joy, agency, and connection, even in the middle of a tough session. So even when the session isn't going to be the easiest session for our clients, we can still work on these goals with them. All right, we're going to talk about sample RT interventions for behavioral health now. So things that you can use in your classes. We talked a little bit about them in our previous section, but I'm going to go into more depth here. So here are some interventions that you can use when working with behavioral health clients. 1, creative expression for emotional processing. So an art therapy group, okay? Art therapy, a lot of times when I've seen other recreational therapists use it, unfortunately involves just free expression, okay? Which is good, but unless it's tied to a goal and you're working on something specifically with the client, it can be perceived as kind of just wasting time or babysitting or all those other things that you hear negatively applied to our profession. So my encouragement to y'all is to create your art therapy groups with a purpose and have a clearly defined purpose of what you're trying to achieve, because that will help you to show that you're making progress towards goals with the clients. Also help other therapies and disciplines know what we are actually doing with the clients, and the clients themselves will appreciate it because they too know what they're trying to learn or what they're trying to grow in. So could be a simple art exercise where you could draw or paint your safe space. So whatever that safe space is for you, where do you go when you want to feel safe? And that could be something that the client does, and they start thinking about it while they're drawing it or making it, painting it. And by doing that, they're cognitively thinking about that safe space and thus coming to a place where they're able to cope with whatever else is going on, because they're getting that same reaction, the same connection in their brain as being there while they're focused on that area. So that could be one area. Another one that I used to use is draw your life before coming to the hospital, because I was working in inpatient psych. So whatever your life you feel it looked like before, and how do you want it to look like when you leave? So cut the paper in half, before and after. Then that shows them, okay, I was here, I don't want to be here, I want to be here. And what can we do along this pathway to get to here? Does that make sense? Okay, so music exploration. That could be lyric analysis of different songs. So you might have a song being played where they're analyzing the lyrics. Music is very powerful, and lyrics can be something that we resonate with as humans. Obviously, they're a lot of times dealing with situations that people are dealing with when they're creating these songs, and so the audience that resonates with those lyrics. For instance, Taylor Swift is very well known for having songs about breakups, right? So when you have a client in the class that might have dealt with a breakup, or is dealing with some depression or suicidal ideation because of something like that, these songs might be a way for them to think about it, work out their emotions. Creating lyrics as well is a great therapy. I'm sure that Taylor Swift actually wrote a lot of these songs to kind of have therapy for her own, feelings of despair that she was dealing with after these breakups. So that's why she created them. And so these songs are therapy. So that could be something you work on with a group. Could be drumming circles, coming together and doing something together as a group, or personalized playlists, songs or in the genre or style that a client is really interested in. And those types of songs can help them to express themselves and get emotions out and cope. Journaling and storytelling. So some people you're going to come across are really good storytellers. They're very creative. Their minds think about various scenarios, and writing a story or journaling about a situation can be therapy in itself. Just kind of like, Joe did this to me when I was on the outside, but when I get back, I'm going to show him by living the best life possible, and I'm going to, talk about all these things I'm going to do, and I'm going to think about it, because when you're writing, you're really thinking through things. So that could be a tool that they can use to help them to process and come up with solutions for when they leave. That's some great ideas right there. So then you have movement-based and somatic therapies. So endorphins are released through movement, right? When your heart rate gets to at least 120 beats per minute. And then once your endorphins are released, a dopamine release happens and you feel a reward. So that's why a lot of people get addicted to things like running or things of that nature where their heart rate is going up. They're feeling a dopamine release. And so the goal with movement-based activities, if you aren't working on just like stretching or physical like goals, you're actually working on mental health goals, the goal would be to get those hormones released from the body. Okay, so the type of exercise or activity that you use will be based off of that. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So that could be a walking, right? Walking is for like the most basic type of exercise. Walking can be great because you can walk in nature. You can, contemplate. You can put on some music while you're walking. It's a great way to decompress. Therapeutic sports. So a lot of people nowadays are getting into things like pickleball, tennis, basketball, soccer, football, all the different sports, right? And those exercises through those sports make your heart rate go up, thus you get those endorphins released. Plus, also, if you're having fun while you're doing it, it's much easier to do. Some people, running is like the worst thing you can ever ask them to do, but if you put them on like a soccer field or a basketball court and they're shooting a basketball, they're playing with a team, they're going to get that heart rate up still the same, and they're doing something else that's still fun. So that's something to think about as well. And then dance. Dance is another big one. My daughter and my wife are both big into dance. My wife does Zumba. She actually teaches it. And for her, that's kind of a release from stress. And then my daughter, she does ballet, jazz, and tumbling. And for her, she uses that every week to get better at that. And that feels great for her to be able to practice something and get better at it. It also involves physical movement and makes your endorphins release, those types of things that we just talked about. Okay, so coping skills and wellness planning. Coping skills toolbox activities. So building a kit for favorite strategies and grounding items. So throughout a person's day, let's say you wanted to make something personalized for each client you came across. Okay, maybe you had some general ideas of what you wanted to leave them with, but the idea that they're going to take something with them when they leave that can remind them to do those things, something tangible, like a shoebox filled with various things that will, maybe it's a playlist of music, maybe it's a I don't know, physical activity thing that you guys did together, or whatever the thing might be. But when they leave, they'll have this like shoebox of items that will help them, remind them to do these specific activities that they can associate with positive outcomes. So that's another cool thing, coping toolbox, something you could do with your clients. Wellness wheel activities. So exploring balance across physical, emotional, spiritual, and social dimensions. Have an activity wheel where it's spun, and whatever the activity pops up, that's what you do. That's another cool idea. Role play for stressful scenarios. That goes back to that whose line is it anyway, improv type stuff, right? Practicing communication styles, boundary setting, or conflict resolution. A great tool for them. Group-based RT interventions is another great category here. You can have recovery-oriented games. So I could talk about something that I did. I did a trivia challenge with clients. Typically, our clients for the acute unit I was on were there for anywhere from like 3 to 7 days. And so I actually created a 2-week long schedule for the classes I was going to teach, so that I didn't just do the same thing every single week, because who knows if somebody might be there, halfway through the week and they're already halfway through my different scenarios or my different classes. So I created a 2-week scenario which covered typically everybody, so that when they came in, they weren't ever having the same therapy class more than once. That was something that I like to do. I think it's really useful because it helps you to not face burnout as a therapist when you don't have to do the same thing every single day. Also helps the clients because they're not doing the same thing every single day either. They're looking forward to your class to see what's coming up. For instance, that trivia challenge. So I would have 2 people or 3, depending on how big the class was, to choose to be their leaders, right? And so they had to discover who wanted to be a leader, and then those leaders would pick their teams. And then from there, I would explain to them, just like in a game show, explain to them that they're there for winning a prize, and the winner of this event will actually get all this candy. And a lot of times it was like sugar-free candy or something, just because you never know if you have diabetics in your group or not. But the questions, and I would ask, give them points, were all mental health questions to teach them about their diagnosis. So could be like understanding like depression or borderline personality disorder or schizophrenia or any of these things. And it could be it'd be multiple choice questions that would be based off of various diagnoses. And so by the end, they would learn more about their diagnosis, and they learn more about like how to, what they need to be aware of so that they know how to react or why they're feeling the certain way that they're feeling. Another cool idea. So highs and low reflection circles. So I don't know if you've ever done this with your friends, but you haven't seen them for a week or so. You say, okay, what were your highs and lows for this week? What were the things that made you most excited and things that were not so great? And that helps them to process and helps them to communicate, and you also to understand and empathize with it. Mindfulness and gratitude groups. Shared quiet time followed by positive affirmations and gratitude journaling. So each of these interventions helps clients develop real life skills so that when they leave the hospital, they're in a better place than when they came. This is just a few different intervention ideas. There's a lot more in all of our courses that Smart CUs have. So check out those courses if you are interested in learning anything in particular. Okay, so now we're moving on to segment 4. We'll be talking about encouraging progress and hope. So supporting behavioral health is a journey. It is our role to walk alongside our clients as they heal, grow, and rediscover their meaning in life, or discover it for the first time, for instance. Okay, so things that we can do are reinforce their strengths. Point out resilience and effort, not just their outcomes. Tell them, I can see that you've been trying in this group, or I can see that you did this thing. Point out actual things that they've done that will help encourage them along that path. Celebrate progress. So little wins, big wins, whatever. People need that dopamine rush so that they can continue doing something. They start getting addicted to that feeling. And so your goal is to create that feeling for them. Empower their choices. So whether it's trauma or whatever else that they came in for, you are empowering them to have control, right? Control equals lack of fear and anxiety. When you have control, you have the lack of fear and anxiety. And control also produces less anger outcomes because people that are angry typically feel out of control or they're experiencing fear. And so they're using anger as a way to intimidate, to create control. So giving them a way to create control without doing that is actually putting them in a better place. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. And then keeping the focus on hope. So recreation allows clients to experience fun, purpose, and new beginnings. So things that they can shoot for. I can point out something as another example. So my wife works in Christian radio. This was a very tricky situation because I would have clients at one of the behavioral health hospitals that I worked at. They had a Christian unit. And so on this unit, it was faith-based stuff as well as like therapy and everything else. And a lot of times there would be part of their discharge plan to get involved in some sort of volunteer opportunity. Working at the behavioral health hospital, obviously we don't want people to be able to find us on the outside. But because my wife is a public figure, she works in Christian radio at a very prominent radio station here out in Tyler, Texas called KVNE. The people were wanting to volunteer at KVNE a lot of times. And I, as a therapist, had to like really think about, okay, do I want this client to be somewhere where they'll be around my wife or potentially myself, because I also volunteer there as well. And so they only need my first name. My wife uses a stage name when she's on the air. So that was kind of a cool thing, is her last name on the air and what she's known as isn't my last name. So there was a way to create some distance in that way. But like a lot of times volunteering is a way to help people experience hope and experience purpose. So we didn't want to take that away from them, but also had to be protective. So hopefully that makes sense as well. All right, so some wrap up and takeaways from today. Behavioral health and mental wellness are essential components of recreational therapy practice. Okay, use trauma-informed care, mindfulness, creativity, and social connection to guide your sessions. Tailor interventions to promote emotional regulation, self-expression, and peer support. And celebrate every step forward, no matter how big or small, and help clients rediscover their joy and purpose in their lives. Okay, so this wraps up week number 16 of the Smart Start Recreational Therapy Insights YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and checking this out. Hopefully you learned some things and you're going to use them in your practice. I've enjoyed making these videos for you so far. Obviously, the goal is to make 52 of these, so we have one a week for the whole year. Please, if you haven't and you really did like this video, please like this video and subscribe to this channel so that you can get these videos every single week as we create them and edit them and put them out. We'll also be announcing them on social media if you aren't already on our Facebook page for Smart CEUs Hub. Or if you would like to contact me for whatever reason, my email address is Nathan, Nathan, at smartceushub.com. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Happy Monday. I know you've got this week. I look forward to seeing you next week. And as always, recreational therapists, stay classy.